Okay, we're going to look at the urinary system in lecture here today. And what's nice about that is that most of you have already turned in the urinary system chapter. Okay, we're in week 7, and some of the topics that you'll find there, I dragged it down from week 6 because we're not finished with them yet. Okay, and for today, March 2nd, we're going to talk about the urinary system. Okay, for the lecture. Okay, urinary system. Uh, seems like a natural follow-up to the digestive system. The urinary system has several functions. I've listed 5 that I consider the most important. Elimination of waste, obviously. Storage of urine. Now, why is storage important? Well, you don't want to be in the middle of the movie and you can't store it. That's obvious. But in evolution, the ability to store urine meant that an animal or a human uh, or pre-human sleeping on the floor of a cave isn't going to wake up in a puddle. Okay? And otherwise, if they were to wake up in a puddle all the time, there would be constant infections going on, and much more difficult to survive. The maintenance of salt balance, okay? The amount of salt in your blood and your tissues, the maintenance of blood pressure, and the general maintenance of homeostasis. Homeostasis is the uh, as is or the status quo of an organ or a system or an individual when they are not diseased. Okay. So when we talk about homeostasis, we're talking about a functioning organ, functioning properly organ, general maintenance of homeostasis. These are the 5 main functions of the urinary system. The components are familiar to all of us, I think, especially if you did that reading already. 2 kidneys. The kidneys are retroperitoneal in position. That means they're not in the abdominal cavity at all. Instead, they're against the back body wall and covered with the parietal peritoneum that we talked about the last time. If you could tack a model of a kidney or two on your the wall of your house, somewhere around you, okay, and then you took saran wrap, huge sheet of saran wrap, and covered the wall and went over the kidneys. You'd put the kidneys behind the saran wrap representing the parietal peritoneum. Okay, and the rest of the organs, like the stomach and the intestines and the pancreas, are going to be inside in the room with you. Okay, but the kidneys are protected somewhat, especially against infection, by being behind the parietal peritoneum. When a kidney transplant takes place, instead of going through the abdominal cavity, which you might think is straightforward and done all the time, you go through the back, or you can also go through the side and get the kidney out, but you don't break into the abdominal pelvic cavity. Uh, with all the abdominal surgeries that go on, I even myself, I question, well, why do they worry so much? They worry about infection. Infection in the abdominal cavity is common after surgeries, and they want to avoid that if at all possible. And so you have this extra layer, the parietal peritoneum, uh, separating the kidney from the abdominal cavity, and much less chance of any sort of infection taking place. Probably the worst thing that I can think of that wasn't an infection didn't happen to me. It happened to a guy I knew up in Utah, in Salt Lake City. He had a diseased kidney. He had a diseased kidney, and he went into the hospital to have it removed. Okay, the other kidney was fine, and they did the surgery, but partway through it found that they were taking out the good kidney. They took out the wrong kidney, ruined it. So now they would take the bad kidney too, and the guy now has no kidneys whatsoever. He's also number 1 on the wait list to get a new kidney. His hospital saw to that. Took him 6 years of waiting to find a match, and he finally did. Uh,
I have a question
yes.
about like I don't really I mean, it's about like the kidney like you know how you have to like look for like a perfect match? Like what makes it like a perfect match? Like what do they exactly look for?
I don't know what they look for. I mean, what they're looking for is a tissue match that won't be rejected. I mean, we can all understand that. I don't know the biochemistry of that. No.
Okay.
Okay. But they're looking for a match that won't be rejected. Okay. Uh, we have draining the kidneys, 2 ureters. These ureters start off behind the parietal peritoneum. And then halfway down to the bladder, they punch through and they do enter tightly into the abdominal cavity. Okay. They get into the abdominal cavity and they make their way to the posterior or dorsal portion of the bladder and enter separately. There are 2 ureters that are entering separately. The urinary bladder is next, and it's lined internally with rugae. We saw rugae in the stomach. It allows for distension, which in the case of the bladder is all too familiar to us. The exit from the bladder is the urethra. This is a tube lined with transitional epithelium. I didn't write that here because you're going to get it so many places uh, ahead of us or a little farther on and well before you're ever asked a question on it. Okay. So 2 kidneys, 2 ureters. Since the ureters punch through about halfway from the kidney to the bladder, they're said to be partially retroperitoneal. Partially retroperitoneal. Now, this page I put in, and I warn you at the top that you're going to need a book or a picture. Well, I've got those pictures here lower on, and but you're going to need something to coordinate these terms with. There are a lot of terms with the kidney. Fortunately, they're not terribly difficult. The hilus. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through those that are easy enough. And those that are a little bit tougher, I'll save for the pictures below. The hylas. You've all seen a bean. Okay. Have you ever seen a black-eyed pea? Uh, Black spot on one side, the medial side, actually. Uh, or a kidney bean, named after our organ here. The indented part is called the hilus. Everything enters into or leaves at the hilus. The cortex is the outer portion of the kidney itself. If you took uh, a kidney bean carefully with a knife and cut it lengthwise, there's a distinct difference between the appearance of the outermost portion and the innermost portion. You'll see it in a moment. And the outermost portion is the cortex, and the innermost is the medulla. Your adrenal gland, nothing to do with the urinary system, but your adrenal gland is the same way. We cut it. There's a cortex on the outside and a medulla on the inside. Renal pyramids, I'm going to skip ahead for that. Here's a renal pyramid. Here, 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 here. This outer portion is the cortex, and the portion inside here, all of this, is the medulla. Part of the medulla is the renal cortex, which is showing here. I'm sorry, I said renal cortex, renal pyramid. They call this a pyramid because it's supposed to have sort of a pointed structure, and some of them do look like pyramids, but that's in 2 dimensions. This is a two-dimensional picture. In 3 dimensions, this so-called pyramid really looks like a cone. Okay? The best I can describe it, have you ever at Halloween received candy corn or given candy corn? You're
Yeah.
the, okay, thank you. I was going to say you're the first group of people that never acknowledged knowing candy corn. Okay, so that's sort of like an eye tooth. You could think of it that way. Okay, so this has some depth to it here as well. And here's the point or the pivot. Okay, it's almost like a top. Although I hated tops when I was a kid, things that spin around and around. But here's the apex of it right here. How many of these are there in a human body? These renal pyramids. And what are they for? We'll get to what they're for in a moment. There's about 11. Here's the hilus, this area here. And things going in it include the renal artery, red, renal vein coming out, and the ureter coming out. We may have to jump back and forth a few times here. Well, we saw the ureter. The renal pyramid that we just passed is one of the greatest places for filtration and uh, to take place in the kidney and for items in the potential urine to be separated out or allowed to go on. We'll talk more about that in a moment. The ureter, okay, I think we can pass that one. The renal pelvis, the major calyx and minor calyx. can all be done at the same time. Fluid passes through the renal pyramids. Then it comes back up again, and then it finds the waste chute called the collecting duct. The collecting duct. You can't see one uh, here labeled, but you can see this one that I'm touching. This is a collecting duct, and it's bringing urine to this structure. Okay. This is a minor calyx. This is a minor calyx attached to this renal pyramid, another minor calyx. Where two or more minor calyces come together, you have a major calyx. I think somebody got carried away with naming things because I don't see the purpose of the name. Uh, Minor calyx, these two come together, major calyx. Where all the major calyces that we have come together, you have one large chamber prior to exiting the kidney. This chamber is the renal pelvis. It's the last spot in the kidney where urine will be and before it departs through the ureter. Okay, so we're down to this point here. Now, there's some arteries and arterioles. I'll go through those together as a group and the Bowman's capsule. The rest of this we'll use the diagram for. The area between two renal pyramids, here and here, is called a renal column. Okay. Sometimes the columns are very thin, like here, or even thinner over here. When blood comes to the kidney, it comes in through the renal artery. It brings with it blood that needs filtering. It needs to be cleansed to have the unwanted uh, material removed and the rest to pass through. When the renal artery is reached, and now you go up between renal pyramids. This one shows it better. You go through the renal column. The artery at this point gets another name. This was a branch of the renal artery. This was a branch of the renal artery, but when it's tucked in between two renal pyramids, it's called a lobar artery. Lobar artery. It can also be called interlobar artery. But you will always use the word lobar, either lobar or interlobar. Now, I know my tests are all geared to say lobar. Maybe some of these pictures aren't. Either is correct. How did that happen? Okay, so here's the lobar artery, and it comes up to the very end of the medulla and branches out. It's been drawn in here, but you can see the new artery above it. Okay. And there's a vein that's going to be running right with it. This is the arcuate artery and vein. The vein is headed back down and will go through the lobar vein. Same name. This is arcuate. You can think of arc, A-R-C, this or arch if you want. But let's follow the arterial blood through the lobar, to the interlobar, and then it goes out into the cortex. You can see several of these. Okay? These are known as cortico-radiate arteries or interlobular. Don't want to get confused here. Lobar is the term we'll always use for those between the renal pyramids in the renal column. These that are going out into the cortex, these are interlobular, okay? And they're also known as cortico because they're going to the cortex, radiate because they're radiating outward. These little dots here will be magnified in a moment. These are the Bowman's capsules, the start of the nephron, but we'll come back to that one. Okay, there'll be a lot of repeat here, but that's the way you learn. Okay, let's come in through the renal artery, through the hilus. This will split, and the part following this artery right here, going between the renal pyramids, is the lobar artery. Here's the arcuate artery going all the way around. I doubt that a single blood cell makes it all the way around before it's turned away. And then the interlobular or cortical radiate are right here. We haven't seen a nephron yet. A nephron is the physiological unit of the kidney. It's the thing that does all of the work. And we haven't seen it yet. We're just looking at the blood supply getting to it. Here's the renal pyramid. When urine exits this, here's a minor calyx, minor calyx, minor calyx, major calyx, and in the very center, sort of covered by these arteries and veins, is the renal pelvis leading to the ureter. Okay. At the top of the screen, I know it's sideways, but it works. This was the interlobular or cortical radiate artery or arteriole, actually. Uh, what's the difference? Uh, actually, you know, I'm going to tell you this, and then you're going to read the book and find that the book's all screwed up, or you think I'm screwed up. Okay. An artery is outside of an organ. Once an artery enters into an organ, it's called an arteriole. But sometimes you'll find books using the terms interchangeably. Never is there a question designed to complicate that. So we're looking at this, the interlobular artery. And over here, this is the interlobular artery. What would this one be? It's been cut off. They left it to your imagination. What artery and vein would this be? Just be wrong. It's okay. This is the arcuate. Okay, they're not showing you all of this. There's the arcuate. There's the interlobular. There's a small vessel that comes off. You can see it barely right here, coming off the interlobular artery. And this is the afferent arteriole, headed for this structure called Bowman's capsule. The afferent arteriole, okay, afferent means affection, attraction, are going towards something, the blood is entering in. And it enters into a set of capillaries, lots and lots of very, very small vessels. And this is a glomerulus. When the blood enters into the glomerulus, it's entering into very, very small tunnels. If you had to exit a room because of a fire, you'd quickly open the doors, I suppose, and get the hell out. But what if it wasn't doors that you had there to open, but instead little, uh, like doors to dog houses, where each student had to get down and crawl through a small opening? That's going to be tough. You're going to have people pushing you from behind. When the blood enters into these small capillaries, it's under pressure. It's going to be pushed from behind. And some of the fluid, the plasma in the blood, is going to be pressed out through the wall of these small capillaries. And it will be collected in this duct that we'll name in a moment. Okay. This is plasma that's being collected. Okay. The sum total of the blood does not all go into this duct. Only the fluid portion and only a part of the fluid portion, and that's the plasma. The rest of the blood exits the Bowman's capsule. Bowman's capsule holds the glomerulus. It exits through this vessel here. That's called the efferent arteriole. Efferent, going away, effervescent, bubbling off. Afferent arteriole brings blood in, efferent takes it out. And we'll see where all of this goes. I know it looks like I'm skipping a lot, but I'll get right back to it. Okay, again, I put these together because I thought they were a little bit clearer than some of the other ones. Renal artery, okay. Lobar artery, arcuate artery, interlobular artery, afferent arteriole, just this tiny little thing here, goes into Bowman's capsule. and we can't follow the blood farther than that, except on its way back, it'll go through arcuate veins, lobar vein, renal vein. Here's a minor calyx. This is a collecting duct, by the way, here. It collects the processed plasma that now is urine and empties it into the minor calyx. This is a major calyx because there's one, two minor calyces. This is the renal pelvis. Out here is the cortex. The medulla is all of this in here. Renal pyramid here. And a renal column would occupy this space along with the lobar artery and vein. Okay, when I first saw this model 30 odd years ago, uh, I wasn't fond of it, but I'm grown to love it. I think it really will help you out a lot. This is on a flat board. These are the arteries and veins prior to getting to the glomerulus. Here's the glomerulus. And here are the tubules that the filtrate is going to pass through before being collected and returned to the minor calyx. Okay, so let's start over here. Coming up, this is the lobar artery. Now, I didn't have the renal artery. It's not on this one, okay? But we start with the lobar artery. Running counter to it is going to be the lobar vein. Here's the lobar artery, then it turns, and it's the arcuate artery. What they're not showing you, it goes completely around. Here's the arcuate artery. Then going up into the cortex is the interlobular artery, also known as the cortico-radiate. This is very small. And then here's the shunt going over to the glomerulus. This is the afferent arteriole. The afferent arteriole enters in through this. This is sort of a greenish orange. Let me get away with that, okay? This is Bowman's capsule. And inside of Bowman's capsule are all those capillaries just spinning around. And those are the glomerulus. From the glomerulus, fluid is pressed out under pressure into these tubules, which we'll name in just a second. But the blood, the solid portion especially, continues on and goes back out by means of the efferent tubule. Okay. Now, the whole purpose of the kidney is to filter the blood, to get the nitrates out, to get the urea out, to get other things out, get medications out, for instance. Okay. Anything that is not uh, contributing to homeostasis, we want to get rid of it. Okay. Well, we can't filter 100% of the blood with one pass. So the blood's going through, some of the fluids coming out, and some of the blood's going on, and some of that blood in the efferent arteriole has contaminants, things that we don't want, waste products, but it won't have as much. It won't have as much. Okay, the fluid that comes out we call plasma, and it goes into this structure. This is proximal convoluted tubule. Proximal, because it's close to Bowman's capsule and the glomerulus. Convoluted, because look where it's going. Okay, this is all it. And now it's headed back towards the medulla with a long piece called the descending loop of Henle. Some books may call it just the descending loop. I prefer to give credit to the guy who found this descending loop of Henle. Goes down. Now, in going down, it enters into the medulla. How do we know? Here's the arcuate vein, and here's the arcuate artery. They separate the cortex above it from the medulla. So the loop of Henle is really right down here at the bottom. It's located in the medulla, and that comes back up. This is the ascending loop of Henle. All the time, water is being retrieved from the tubule, water that was stressed out. Sugar may be retrieved if it's not there in too high a concentration. Other nutrients, proteins, and amino acids are retrieved, sucked back into the body, and you'll see where in just a second. And the bad stuff is getting more and more concentrated, the uric acid. And now we enter into the last portion. This is the distal convoluted tubule. The distal convoluted tubule makes a last-ditch effort at reabsorbing more water. Now, where my cursor is, it's now entering into a collecting duct. Nothing physiologically will happen in the collecting duct. It's a tube going towards ultimately the bladder. Before that, the minor calyx, the major calyx, the renal pelvis, and the ureter. The collecting duct is shared, and here is the share to another nephron. This whole structure here being called the nephron. Another one, another one. Well, as the fluid, the plasma goes down the loop of Henle, it really gives an opportunity to reabsorb the nutrients we want. And that reabsorption is done by a branch off of the efferent arteriole that we looked at before. That efferent arteriole branches and makes like a hairnet over the entire nephron. And it sucks back, if I can, I know that's not a cellular process, but it uses osmosis, it uses active transport, and especially uses dialysis to bring back fluid into these vessels so that the useful material is not lost. These vessels are called the vasa recta. They originate from the efferent arteriole, they spread out, they're called the vasa recta. And they return the blood and useful contents back here to the interlobular vein, to the arcuate vein, to the lobar vein, and eventually it goes back into the body. Now, all this that I skipped a moment ago, summary of blood and plasma flow, we actually just went over it. But We'll go over it one more time quickly, though. Okay. Uh, Blood that contains both nutrients and waste enters into the kidney. Okay. So we want to separate one from the other. This entrance is at the hilum. The renal artery, which is bringing this material, goes between the renal pyramids. Okay. Those are called by means of what we call lower arteries. Uh, they make a right-hand turn almost to the arcuate artery, and then they go into the blood goes into the interlobular arteries. Nothing has been done to process this blood yet. Not yet. Okay? These are also known as the corticoradiate. Bowman's capsule is entered, okay, from afferent arterioles. They travel to the nephron, the blood does, and enters Bowman's capsule. Once inside, it'll enter a series of capillaries called the glomerulus. The fluid is pressed out just by pressure alone, the fluid portion of the blood. Not all of it, just some of it. You are not supposed to press out red blood cells. Some white blood cells do get pressed out because they're flexible. If you press out red blood cells, your blood pressure is probably way too high. The fluid goes first into the proximal convoluted tubule, and from there downward into the loop of Henle, which has a descending and ascending portion. Valuable nutrients are resorbed. Resorbed is the word. Uh, you would think absorbed is good, but resorbed is the word people like to use. Okay. Valuable material is resorbed, but nitrogenous wastes stay in the tubules and continue on. After the loop of Henle is passed, the material goes to the distal convoluted tubule. Urine is the end product. Urine then enters into the collecting duct. Lots of nephrons empty into any one collecting duct. From there, at the end of the collecting duct, there's a minor calyx. Where you have two or more of those joining, you have a major calyx. And then you have finally the renal pelvis. Okay, you're done there. The vasa recta. The vasa recta is formed from the efferent arteriole. It is the hairnet that I referred to that spreads out over the loop of Henle and picks up valuable material that's flowing through the loop of Henle. I did not mention this because I don't feel it's as important. The vasa recta, the vessels of it join and form what's called the vena recta. Well, that's taking blood to the interlobular vein, then the arcuate vein. We mentioned all of this, and then the lobar veins. Okay, and finally back to the renal vein and into general circulation. Absolutely, statements like this always appear on tests. Nephron is the physiological unit of the kidney, and it includes everything from the glomerulus and Bowman's capsule to the collecting duct. I don't think it's really going to be necessary for you to search for better pictures than this. Okay. Um, the first one wasn't the best, but the three end ones, this one is nice. This one is nice. I don't think you'll find better ones. Okay. Okay. Questions? Okay. Uh, let's take a break till quarter after, and I'll see you back here then. Okay. Okay, hello.
Hi.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Anybody think of a question? The next test you have is a practicum. Practicums generally score better than lecture tests, though. You've heard me say that before. But that little exercise that I gave you was meant to uh, hopefully help you with the next lecture test when it comes around. You know, that's always my intention that it's going to help. And it's always my frustration that it doesn't. What I mean? It doesn't. Well, you can imagine that because of the extra credit that this test brought in, uh, the scores were artificially, and I don't mean that in a bad way, artificially 10 points higher. Well, not quite, because not everybody did this. Okay, but uh, your score might have been about 10 points higher. Now, the idea is let's keep it there. Definitely, let's keep it there. Uh, uh, you can look at your own score and see uh, how beneficial that was. For some, it wasn't very beneficial because they had such high scores to begin with. And others, let's, like I said, hopefully keep them there. Uh, but my frustration is that when we have the second test, the scores just drop back to where they were. If the scores are going to drop back uh, to where they were, well, then that extra credit really didn't help much, and it's going to result in a lower score. I want the best scores from you because I know you want the best scores. So uh, hopefully, anyway, that this will encourage you and help you as well. What else was I going to say? I was going to say something. I'm always saying something. Uh, but the next practicum is 2 weeks from today. And most people consider it the hardest practicum. I don't know why. I don't know why. Maybe it's the way people study for it. If you study for this test at the last minute, it'll be murder. Uh, the practicum on the muscles isn't that hard. Isn't that hard? Naming the muscles, 51 of the questions are just name it. Okay, and people don't have trouble with that. But it's learning the origins, insertions, and actions, and putting it off. You really cannot do that and expect to do that well. Start now. You got 2 weeks. I'm going to go over half the muscles, approximately half, with you today, including some that we've already discussed. And then I'll do another half on Thursday. And I'm going to do it both on a human and the cat uh, each day. Okay.
Is anything from the muscles for the cat going to be on the practicum?
Yes, it is. I'm going to be
Okay,
sure.
thanks.
First off, on that, the name of the muscle it shouldn't be difficult. The action of the muscle is exactly the same because the actions, origins, and insertions, I am only using human answers. Okay, so you don't have to worry that in studying origin, insertion, and action, that you got to study it twice, once for human, once for cat. No, you don't. You just study it for human. Okay. Uh, but I want you to be able to identify the muscles on the cat as well. I think it really, and some people disagree, but all of the anatomy instructors have done it for many years, and we feel that you learn more and you learn it better if you see the origins and insertions on two organisms, the human and some other sort of primate. In this case, they're going to use the cat vertebrate, I should have said. Okay, what else? How come I always looking sideways? I don't like that. No. Okay. Okay. Are you seeing my cursor right around this number 4?
No.
No.
No, I don't see it.
Okay, then that's it. That's fine. I was just trying to take a shortcut. Uh, okay, now you see me at week 7.
Yes. Yeah, I see it, Charlie.
Okay. Thanks for letting me know. We'd have been here all day otherwise. Okay. This condensed muscle list. It's just that muscle list. I showed you where to get it. I uh, put it in here, but it's not clickable. Okay, you can't do anything with it but except copy it. Okay, so if you want a list to copy, this is the list that has the shortened origins and insertions, but the same actions and the same muscles. Okay. Then I have a list of human muscles and a list of the cat muscles. Okay. We're going to hit the respiratory system quickly. That's a very easy topic, actually, for this class on Thursday. But I want to jump over to additional muscle terms and just partially get into this page. And then we'll come back to these uh, muscles that I wanted to go over with you today. Additional muscle terms. Okay. Okay, nothing to learn here today. Just let me tell you what this is in case you jump to it on your own. Okay, these are 3 muscles or 3 connective tissues in the arm. That's all they are. There's no link to them. There's no origin, insertion, or function for them. You only have to be able to eventually identify them. And I do have them for us. Okay. But if you jump to this page, I don't want you to be confused and think something's missing. We're going to do the muscles of the head. Okay. And like, for instance, the orbicularis oris is the muscle around the mouth. Around the eyes, it's orbicularis oculi. Frontalis, I bet everybody in the room here would get that one right. That's the forehead. Temporalis, if you can wiggle your ears. Okay. So here's some muscles of the head that we're going to be learning. We're also going to learn the muscles of the eye. There's 6 muscles that are important in the orbit of the eye. And 4 of them are super easy. And 2 of them take some concentration. Okay. Other terms, linea alba, lumbodorsal fascia. Two that I'm going to do right now, antagonist and synergist. When muscles work opposite each other, they are antagonistic, and they are said to be an antagonist pair. When muscles work together to perform a function, they're synergistic, and they're said to be synergist. So let's get an example. If you flex your forearm, flex the forearm, you're going to use the biceps brachii. You'll also use the brachialis, okay, to bring your arm up in a flexed position. What brings the arm down? Well, you could just relax, bend over, let gravity do it. Or you could use the triceps that extends the arm. So the triceps does the opposite of the biceps, and those are antagonistic. Also, the triceps, in straightening the arm, works opposite the brachialis, which helps the biceps to flex the arm. So the brachialis and the triceps are antagonistic. The biceps brachii and the brachialis, however, work together to flex the arm, and those would be synergists working synergistically together. This is just under the title Other Terms, because there are some mixtures of terms here that we will be doing. The rotator cuff. The rotator cuff refers to the ball and socket joint of your upper arm, the humerus, into the scapula. And the rotator cuff muscles are listed here and not needed to be memorized or anything yet. Okay, so the rotator cuff muscles, these are the four, and you'll need to know them and what group they're in. Any of these four are in the rotator cuff muscle group. The quadriceps, if you slap your thigh, okay, the front of your thigh, the very front, you're hitting the rectus femoris. And if you hit laterally on both sides, you're hitting the vastus lateralis. And medially, just the vastus medialis. Vastus intermedius you couldn't find on yourself. You'd have to use a model. But you're going to need to know that this group of four quadriceps, group of four, work together at most times. If you were to take your knee, and maybe in soccer, for instance, and you kick the ball with your knee, okay, you're going to raise up your entire leg, and you'll use the sum total of all four of these muscles to raise up your leg. And they'll all be synergists because they're all participating in this flexion of the thigh. However, you can also, and you know this, of course, uh, uh, move your leg outward, laterally, abduct, you can swing your leg out. Gravity will bring it back down. But you can also press your legs together so that your medial muscles are working and they're working opposite the lateral muscles. So even though all four of these can kick a ball and do it synergistically, they can also at times work independently and opposite each other. That means they can also be antagonistic as well. I'm taking extra time to point this out because I'm going to be showing you real examples of this in just a moment. Okay. The hamstrings on the back of your thigh. It consists of three muscles. They're there. You'll need to memorize them and know that they are the hamstrings. Okay. Nothing else to do with this page right now. I just didn't want somebody skipping ahead to it and wondering what the hell's going on. Okay, so we're going to go to the list of human muscles first. And this one, I find with my browser, I click and click and click and click and click, and nothing happens. Okay, if that's the case with you, well, we have an easy fix for that. You see the list, the title at the top. Just hit the title. Okay, and now everything will click. Last week I gave you a little bonus quiz, a very small bonus quiz that, and so you know a lot of these muscles through here. Then I told you to skip the arm muscles. Well, it's time to do the arm muscles, and I want to go quickly through the ones that I think you know. Okay, if I'm too quick, you can slow me down. Okay, the trapezius. Okay, trapezius muscle is actually in three parts. It is in part the piece here that attaches to the spine. That's the spinal trapezius. There we go. Then you have the acromion trapezius and the clavo trapezius. Clavo trapezius is here, near your neck. Okay. Somebody were to grab you, that would be the clavo trapezius. Clavo referring to the clavicle, acromio referring to the acromion of the scapula, and spino referring to its origin on the spine. So here it is, the trapezius. Okay. Now you're going to have homework. Okay, homework here is to learn the origins, insertions, and action. Well, but you get the answer of those on a multiple choice test. So that should help, but you got to have a general idea. You don't have to have it memorized letter for letter, word for word. You have to have an idea of how these work. Best thing I can suggest is move your own muscles according to the chart that says origin here, insertion, and here's what it does, and see that that's the case. Second muscle is the latissimus dorsi. It's down here. It extends around the back and it inserts on the humerus to pull the arm back. The serratus anterior underneath the armpit, okay, along the side, here they are. They're called the boxer muscles because they help you to jab. Uh, Put your fist forward rather quick. Here's the serratus anterior. Now, a lot of times we'll use the same slide. No need of using another image when we can label this one again. This is showing the rhomboides, which you were tested on. Now here's the rhomboides. There's two parts to the rhomboid, so don't be confused here. Rhomboides, and they pull the scapula together, or and you want to put your arms together behind your back. The pectoralis major on the front of the chest here, and we can do the pectoralis minor at the same time. This side here is more superficial. When this muscle is ripped off or taken off, or in the model or in dissection, it exposes this. So this is deeper. The pectoralis major pulls the arms across the chest. Pectoralis minor helps to elevate the ribs. Seven is the deltoid. The deltoid is also a three-parted muscle, three-headed muscle. It has a spino, clavo, and a acromial portion, just like the trapezius does. But its function is to elevate the arm, move it laterally, and it helps also to move it forward. Looks like we're going to be going to number 8 next, so you get an idea where it is. Here's where we are. This is the supraspinatus. And number 9 below the spine is the infraspinatus. Okay, we haven't hit the ones that you were excused from last week. This is a picture that can be improved upon. It's number 10 that we're looking at, the triceps. The triceps are here, here, and then this is the brachialis, and this is the biceps brachii. And you can't see its number, which should be number 11 up here. Okay. The trick on this one only is to get the orientation. If you can't get the orientation, or it takes a little while, it can get a little tough on this one anyway. That's where a book will come in handy. Now the triceps is down here, and the triceps is up here. But tri means 3, so in between here, if you separated it, you'd find the third head. We never ask the third head on examination. Okay. Okay, so now it's rotated slightly, the same model. Here was the triceps down here. Here's the brachialis. We can do that right now. And here's the biceps brachii. Where do you see the two heads? You don't even see the separation. The two heads separate up here. Okay, up here. Biceps and brachialis are synergists. They work together. Okay, now we're going to get into the forearm muscles, from number 13 to number 21 are forearm muscles. And I didn't think that these were going to work out for you because, again, it's the orientation. So we need to go over them together. Okay. Well, what you have here orientation wise is the underside of the arm. So in other words, in anatomical position, you would have your palms forward, and this would be an anatomical position, although it's lying down. Okay. On the underside of your forearm, you can do it while I don't need to be there. Take your thumb on one hand and touch it to the little fingertip of the same hand, of course. Touch the thumb and fingertip, and then look at your wrist. And do you see a tendon? Twist it if you have to. We've seen that tendon all of our life. Okay. Some of you have more than one tendon there. Some of you have two. Anybody with two?
I have two on one hand and one on the other.
Oh yeah, okay, a real freak. No,
Thanks.
I'm just kidding you. I gotta have some fun. No, that's happened before. And we had one person with four tendons on one arm and just one on the other. Me, I'm just one and one, on the two. Uh, okay, a tendon attaches bone to muscle, and here's where you're looking at where my cursor is, and come back to the muscle that we have. This is the palmaris longus. The palmaris longus on the underside, or actually the anterior side of the arm, okay, comes out. The tendon flares out and attaches to all of the fingers. On either side, here or here, of the palmaris longus, you are on the flexor side. In other words, these muscles flex, make a fist for you, or pull your wrist up. Okay, this is the flexor side. And on either side of the palmaris longus is the flexor carpi ulnaris. That's this one. Or the flexor carpi radialis. It's this one. Now, here's why I took this off the exam, but I can get you a better picture. Uh, and it will be on our next exam, our lab exam. The flexicarpi radialis. It's flexor because it's going to help bring the wrist up. It's carpi because it's attached to the carpals of the hand. And it's radialis because it's the thumb side. And it does not show the thumb. That's why it's not a great picture anyway. Okay. Oh, anybody could learn it by memorizing the numbers. Okay. But the thumb is over here. The thumb is always radial. Okay. So this is the flexor carpi radialis. In any picture I show you on the examination, if I need radial or ulnar out of you, you'll see either the little finger or the thumb. This side over here is the flexor carpi ulnaris. Now with one of your hands out in front of you, palm up, make a fist and raise your wrist at the same time, and you're using all of these muscles. So all of these muscles can be synergistic to each other. On the other hand, open your hand, still face up, and now turn it outward so that the thumb goes away from you. Okay, that's being done by the carpi radialis, number 15. Now turn it and turn your hand so that the little fingers head medially, inward, adduct. So number 13 is doing that, the flexor carpi ulnaris. What I'm trying to get at is that although all three of these can work together, numbers 15 and 13 can also work opposite each other and be antagonistic. We don't have a million of these examples, fortunately, okay, but we do have a couple, and I want to point them out because when you go through and learn the actions of these muscles, which you've got to start doing, okay, uh, they're going to end up being confused if you're not prepared for antagonism versus synergism. I think you are now. Okay. Okay, we did 13, 14, 15, 16. Here's 13, 14, 15 on this side. Okay. And here's little 16. This small muscle is the pronator teres. The pronator takes your arm and turns it inward. So if you have one of your hands out again, palm up. Now rotate your thumb towards the center, turn your hand over, in other words, and that's being done by the pronator teres. We're going to the other side now with number 17. Well, I don't think our picture would be any better. Probably the same picture. Yeah. Okay, 17 is a flat muscle. Flat, but expansive, but flat. This is the brachioradialis, also known as the radiobrachialis, brachioradialis. You can say it either way, brachioradialis or radiobrachialis. This is not a muscle of strength. We just have it. The fact that we have something doesn't mean it has a use or that it is very useful. This is the brachialis. The brachialis, you can't see it, but there's a little tape up here. That was the brachioradialis that we just did. And now we've rotated it over. And I've got a piece of tape that straddles what looks like two muscles, this one and this one. This is on the extensor side. In other words, causes the fingers to go out, not to make a fist the other way, but to go out. This is muscle 18. It's a two-headed muscle. It's the extensor carpi radialis because it's going towards the thumb. As I promised in the test that you take, there'll be a thumb. Okay. These two are the same. They get so often confused, but they're not. They're the same. Extensor carpi radialis. all the carpi muscles. We did flexor carpi ulnaris, flexor carpi radialis. Now we've done extensor carpi radialis here, and we're going to have one more down here, the extensor carpi ulnaris. All of the carpi muscles have two heads. They can easily be sectioned, and a photograph might actually show both of the sections, the two parts. You won't be confused about that if you are watching for it and you've been alerted to it. Well, the alerting is done, but we've got 2 weeks, as I said, to learn these. Okay, number 19 is this one. Big muscle on the side. This is the extensor digitorum. It's also called the extensor digitorum communis on my sheet because it goes out and in common, it links up with all of the fingers. Extensor carpi communis. Little muscle here goes out. Here's the tendon, and it only attaches to the little finger. It's the extensor digitorum minimi. Extensor digitorum minimi. And end up with the same picture. The last one here in the forearm, number 21, is the extensor carpi ulnaris. Extensor carpi muscles all have two heads. Here's one, here's the other. And it goes and inserts on the ulnar side. The masseter is this muscle right here. We have plenty of opportunity to see the masseter. Okay, it's number 22 on your sheet. These other muscle numbers refer to when we do the head. They're farther down on the list. The masseter closes the mouth. Nothing could be simpler. Right here. 23. Okay, we're looking up at somebody's throat. Here's 22 again over here. When you see it, it's the same 22. It's the masseter. Okay. 23. 23 is right in the middle here where the cursor is and goes right up the middle to the chin. This muscle is rather soft, but always nice and centrally located here. This is the mylohyoideus. It helps in moving the hyoid bone, which is here, in swallowing. Mylohyoideus. 24 is this muscle here. The tape covers up most of it on this side. So it's here. It sort of makes a TP here and here. These are the digastricus. The digastrus if I can say it right, digastricus opens the mouth, not as strong as the masseter. 25 is the sternohyoideus. Some of these muscles are easy to learn because they follow their name, sterno to the hyoid, sternum to the hyoid, sternohyoideus. Number 26 is one of those that's easy to name. It's the sterno, and it goes to the mastoid process right at the back of the ear, sternomastoideus. There's sternomastoideus, of course, is paired with another sternomastoideus on the other side, and it has many functions. When you lower your chin downward, that's the sternomastoideus. When you tilt your head right or left, that's the sternomastoideus on one side or the other. They can work together or they can work separately. Okay, that's through number 26. So now I want to do the same, 26 on the cat, and do the remainder on of the muscles on Thursday. Okay, now this won't click for me either, I'm sure. So if that happens to you, that's not a problem. Just click the title. Okay. Double clicking enlarges this. Here's the trapezius on the cat. It's also triangular. It was on the human. It starts back here at the spine, spinal trapezius. This is the acromiotrapezius on top of the shoulder blade. And this at the neck is the clavotrapezius. You only have to know it by trapezius. Any part of it labeled is trapezius. The origins, the insertions, and actions are actually the same. There are a few differences that I'll point out as we go along, but most of these are exactly the same. Back out, double, 2 clicks. Here's the latissimus dorsi. You remember it in the human when we saw it? It came from the back and goes out to the humerus. The down here, these things that look like vents, we saw those on the human model. This is the serratus anterior. The ones I call the jabbing muscles. The latissimus dorsi has been pushed out of the way. The rhomboides between the shoulder blades, here they are, being held aside. These vent-like structures here. These are the rhomboides or rhomboideus, and they help to pull the scapula together. Okay, on the top of the chest, here's the pectoralis major. Now in the human, it's more rounded, obviously. In the cat, it's not, has the same function to pull the arms across the chest. The pectoralis minor, which was tucked underneath the pectoralis major on our human model, continues outward, and this is the pectoralis minor here on the cat. This number 11, the only other one that's on this side, is the biceps brachii. The biceps brachii. You can't see the brachialis from this side, you can see it from the other side. The deltoid in the human was the shoulder, and it is in the cat. It's in 3 parts in the human, and it's in 3 parts in the cat. I'll name them, but you only have to know deltoid. 7A is the spinal deltoid. 7B is the acromiodeltoid. The acromion is right under there. And 7C down here is the clavodeltoid. The clavotrapezius was up here, and it's muscle to muscle in this case. They're attaching to each other. Actually, muscle to muscle seems unusual, but it's not. It really helps to just increase the length of the muscle or the action. Number 12 we'll do now. This is the brachialis right here. This is the triceps. Come on over and fall off and touch the brachialis. I have to lift this up just slightly to see the biceps brachii. This is brachialis here. Here's the supraspinatus. The trapezius, the acromiotrapezius was pulled aside and cut so that you could see the supraspinatus. Down here is the infraspinatus, number 9. So now you can see the true outline of the large scapula in the cat. Ten is the triceps. It's one of them. Here's the other. We did the biceps brachii and brachialis. Okay, on the cat, the forearm muscles. Sometimes with a good dissection, they're actually better, but somebody was only mediocre here. I want you to look at this one, number 14. Now, I've got it memorized what number 14 is, of course, after all these years. But if you can trace it up past the number, you'll end up seeing that it goes to all the digits. This is the palmaris longus. On either side of the palmaris is the flexor carpi, and this one back here is the flexor carpi radialis. And this one down here, this is a needle right here, so it's hidden right here, is the flexor carpi ulnaris. We just saw that. Okay. Again, palmaris longus here. Flexor carpi radialis here. And then the next one, just as in humans, a small muscle that turns the arm. This is the pronator teres. This thin muscle, I refer to it as being thin and flat and human as well, is number 17. It's the brachioradialis. Lifting it up underneath, there's a muscle here. This is the extensor carpi radialis. That's number 18. That can actually be seen from both sides of the arm. So in a face-to-face class, it's a fooler. But in a class like this, it won't fool you at all. Here's number 19. Number 19 was the extensor digitorum, or extensor digitorum communis. Goes out to all the fingers. Sorry we did that. Okay, this number 19, for those with good short-term memory, this was the extensor digitorum communis we just did. This next one is the extensor digitorum minimi. It only goes to the little finger. And that's followed by the most extreme, the extensor carpi ulnaris. Here was the extensor carpi radialis up here. And here was the brachioradialis here. The masseter on the cat, rather than being a straight muscle like ours, is rounded on the side of the face here. These muscles on the cat, on the throat of the cat, were very, very similar to what we have. Right in the middle here, sort of can punch underneath your chin. This is the mylohyoideus. Mylohyoideus. Below it, the sternohyoideus. The hyoid bone is right here underneath the transverse jugular vein. This is the sternohyoideus. And 24. Well, what's that one? I haven't heard you in so long, I think I'm here by myself. Look it up.
Isn't it the digastric?
Yes, that's it. It gets lonely sitting here, you know? I'm the only one in this damn room. Okay, the digastricus. I almost got, you know how you got to be politically correct these days. You can't say anything wrong. If you do, you're fired. I don't care. They can fire me. I love the job. I don't need the job. But you got to watch what you call men and what you call women and everything. Just God, let's get on with living. But I almost got myself in a bind once. We used to have cats, face to face, of course, and we dissect them. And for maybe 10 years, the cats came in, and when the class was working on their cats, doing this portion here, there were never any digastricus muscles. Actually, of course, they were there, but they were so thin, they were like tissue. And it made you wonder, well, what are they feeding these cats or what? The digastrics here looked really pretty good. I came into the classroom from the back room where I must have had something to do. And people were dissecting their cats. They were supposed to be doing the chin area. And these two girls, I'll call them girls. I mean, that's not allowed to use the term. Well, it's tough. Don't know how not to. They were dissecting the cat. One was standing and one was seated doing the dissection. She had two probes. Well, here's a probe right here. Okay, that's what I mean. She had two probes, and she was pulling this digastric this way and this one this way with the two probes. And she was leaning over to get a good look at it and everything. And I came by and I'm looking at it too. And I'm going, wow, to myself. Those are the best digastric muscles I have ever seen. We've gone years without good cats with them. And now, you know, these are just excellent. Well, she's bending over looking at that, and I'm on the other side of the table looking at that, but I'm not noticing, uh, you know, my appreciation of anatomy does not extend to all parts of the body. She was uh, she was showing cleavage, bent over that desk, whatever. She was what you call endowed or overly endowed or whatever. Uh, but I could care less. That wasn't my interest at all. All I cared about was the digastric muscles. Oh, they're great. And so I went and pulled, I goofed up. I said, wow, you got big ones, and man, they, she and the girls just stood at attention real quick. And then we all realized what had exactly happened. So it was fine. Okay, 24, 25, 23.
Charlie, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So the brachioradialis, you said it's very thin and small, but in all of the images that I'm seeing online, it actually looks really thick.
Does this look,
Can you explain that?
how about here?
Well, I see that on the cat, like it does look super thin. I'm just saying that online, any models that I look at, they look really large. Are we not seeing the belly of the muscle right there?
No, you're
Or
not. You're seeing one side. You're seeing one surface. You're not seeing the thickness, are you?
yeah,
Well,
so
you,
can you show us where the belly would be?
oh, the belly's right there, middle. See where I am touching?
Yes.
I'm using this particular picture just because it was, luckily right here. Uh, if you think of for instance, a man's belt, okay, forget the buckle, just the belt, the strap. That's what it looks like. It's thin.
Okay, it just looks really thick online, so that's why I had the question.
Well, if you got the page, because you can't share with me and me with you at the same time, just send me the URL or something if you can.
Okay, I will.
Okay, I'd like to see what you're talking about. Okay, this didn't get me anywhere because that's nothing there. I'm almost done here. Masseter, mastoid. Okay, that's the one I want. Here's the sternomastoid muscle. It's running underneath the external jugular. And then it goes off to this side as well. Sternomastoid, mylohyoid, digastricus, a kind of munched on one side, sternohyoideus. Okay. Okay. Uh, now, just open up for questions if you got any final ones. I did half the muscles, uh, not counting the head muscles and face muscles, which are fortunately easy. I'm going to do the other half on Thursday. So I went through number 26. So if you're so inclined and want to go ahead and take a look at through number 52, be my guest. Not necessary though, because we'll do it together. Anna, I changed your email address.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. And you don't need to write up anything or send me anything in for that the bonus project. Okay. Because that would just put you not behind, but stop you from getting ahead. So I've given you the points for that. That was all my fault.
Oh no, thank you so much.
Okay. And that for everybody else, I'll be posting those scores, adjusted scores, final scores tomorrow night. Please take a look at them and let me know if you have any disagreement. I'll take care of it.